Hey, Bloodbath. It's just Fraser today. All the guys and I were away at the Edmonton Open GT this past weekend. Long weekend. 3 games Friday, 3 games Saturday, and then 2 games Sunday. I just wanted to give a little bit of a tournament recap for myself. I didn't really film anything while I was there, just because I really wanted to be kind of present in the moment, and I knew that I would forget in between games sometimes, and I just wanted to, if I was going to bring you some information, I wanted it to be complete. So now that I've kind of had a day to rest and process everything, I wanted to just talk about my experience at the Edmonton Open and World Leaders. So, for context, World Leaders, I'd had kind of two half games with the new codex before going to Edmonton. So, kind of just playing around with the rules, not really playing with the new edition, um, trying out a couple like tools in the list. And then I started putting together a list. There were a couple good singles lists that were doing pretty well with just the one Berserker brick. I knew I wanted to bring Warband just because it was easier to pick up and play when I have little to no reps with the army. But basically, because I'd been on Yanari to win my golden ticket again, and then the Calgary Championships ran past the last like balanced data slate, I was still playing old rules Yanari until literally the week before the Open. So this Open was my first full games with the World Leaders Codex, and I ended up finishing in third place out of 256-ish players, which I was not expecting. I actually built my list in a WTC style terrain list because I have an event next weekend that I'm looking to take. And then, yeah, the list performed phenomenally. I'll kind of break it down a little bit, go through a little bit of the moving parts, and then just my experience as a whole and how I'm feeling about World Leaders pairing up into the meta right now. So basically, my list is like the core of the list is having two big Berserker bricks. And why I like the Berserker bricks, and this came up in a lot of my games, is basically you're taking on your buffs sustained lethal or sustained fight on death or lethal fight on death, or dev wounds versus infantry if you go into like much tougher armies like a infantry skew death guard, anything along those lines. But once you get the 6-inch pilot and consolidate running on the Berserkers advancing and charging, just being able to advance the Berserkers, like the Karn squad, out of a Rhino from like the middle piece of terrain on turns 2, 3, 4, and touch something inside your opponent's deployment zone near their home objective and multi-charge with 8-bound or spawn or the slaughterbound squad that I put in Ingress, the ability to tag multiple units into one thing, kill it, and then spread out is absolutely phenomenal, and just touch basically everything in the army. Like it feels incredible to play with. It opens up certainly a lot of room for player flexibility, and that's why I really like the fast moving Berserker bricks, because once you're touching everything, everything can only fall back so far. And then when people shoot you, you pick which models to pull, so you leave yourself closer to Blood Surge, and it just becomes like almost like this cancer in like inside your opponent's army that they can't really get themselves away from. And especially with fight on death active, if somebody's trying to deal with it in melee, which is basically the only appropriate way to deal with it, unless they can pick it all up in one activation, their army's just being whittled down in their own turn. And with Forge Fiend support, it's just really hard to deal with. So those are the kind of plays I was looking for, and especially next weekend on WTC terrain. Most of my army is going to be obscured for most of the game, so I only put one Rhino in the list. So generally, the Master of Executions is starting on foot. He is favorite of Khorne, just so I can basically make my Khorne rolls a little more reliable. So if I didn't roll fight on death, I get to reroll 2 of the dice just to make sure that I'm getting it. And then once Karn projects and he goes in, and I'm trying to touch my opponent with 2 or 3 separate units, just kind of like a little bit of a threat overload. I have a second wave coming directly for the turn afterwards. It just makes for a really nice amount of board presence, and that's why I really like the double Berserker brick. So my list is Karn. I have the Demon Prince with -1 damage. I have the Master of Executions, and the Master of Executions has the, as I said, favorite of Khorne. And then I have the Slaughterbound, and the Slaughterbound has, I keep looking over there because all my models are over there. So I'm going through my list and looking. The Slaughterbound has the Berserker Glaive on him. So just, he was always ingressing with Exalted 8-bound. Exalted definitely don't hit as hard as I want them to. and even them picking up like middle toughness vehicles is fairly unreliable. So having the Slaughterbound kind of pushes them over that threshold they need. And an ingress threat is usually very important in my game, so I really enjoyed having that. Again, the double Berserker brick, one Rhino, and the MVP of the list are the Spawn. So I have 3 squads of 2 Spawn, and the Spawns set you completely up for success for the entire game. They are very undercosted. Their data sheet rules are unbelievably good, and basically their job is to either stage, maybe complete like an early like secondary, but you're not offering all 3 squads of your spawn up at once. They can deal with anything that your opponent will use for early game trading, early game skirmishing, skirmish units. Easy, like they can, with a little bit of fire support, reliably pick up Poxwalkers, other unit spawns. They can pick up 5-man Marines. Like the spawn plays are absolutely crucial to setting yourself up for success. So, for example, in my last Death Guard game, which was basically when I was playing for 3rd place on the 2nd stream table at the GW Open, the Death Guard player, Stu, great player, put all of his kind of Poxwalkers to insulate me into my deployment zone. And basically, I just spent the entire turn dealing with all of his like trash, and then basically consolidating onto the objectives afterwards. So everything was unstickied. Now he has to use his units of value to deal with my cheap units. And just having probably the best cheap units in the game makes our faction unbelievable. I think we're in a very, very good spot. Supporting the rest of the list, aside from the spawn, there's going to be 2 squads of Forge Fiends, and there's also going to be a squad of Jackals, 2 regular 8-bound, which are phenomenal into infantry, and obviously supporting the rest of the list. If the Berserker blob can go in and have a squad of 8-bound within 6, if it's going into anything that's not a monster vehicle for the +1 to hit, absolutely great. And then the Exalted 8-bound obviously are ingressing with the Slaughterbound that I mentioned. So the event was extremely well run. It was a little unusual because lists weren't actually released until the first round, so nobody knew what really anybody submitted. So I went into it, and my first few games. So my first game I played Imperial Knights. So my win path was Imperial Knights with Seb Nera, Garrett Howes, Chaos Knights, Jason Fowler Orcs, Nathan Booten, Leagues of Votan, Anthony Dalalana, Calgary guy. He's been on stream a couple times. I played him on the secondary stream table with his Bile versus my World Leaders. Ben Greenlay from Edmonton, great Grey Knights player. I played him. And then Jake Chalmers, who was the player that I lost to, with his Greater Demon like Chaos list. And then Stu Angel in the finals. So all in all, my impressions of World Leaders are we're susceptible to a toughness skew. And generally, a lot of the stat checky matchups, especially if somebody has a lot of big stuff, are going to rely on us getting multiple units of ours into one of the big things just to try and like deal with it. Either that or we're just ignoring it completely and taking everything else on the table. So like big knights, greater demons, generally greater demons are fine, but like T12 is a really harsh breakpoint for us. Even the 10 mans with the berserkers, 10 mans with like the characters, it's definitely a coin toss whether they're able to deal with like big stuff or not. So generally you want to be multi-charging, but then you run the risk of if they have enough CP, they can get an interrupt. And that's kind of the issue I ran into when I was playing Jake, was he had like exceptional first turn secondary draws and then offered me 3 great unclean ones. And I invested probably, I want to say like just south of 1,000 points of resources into the great unclean one on the right side of the board for me. And he just rolled his 4s. And because he rolled his 4-ups, the Guo actually only ended up taking literally 2 wounds, which is not at all average. But if he rolled his, like he rolled it 4s, so there's literally like nothing I could do about that game. Retrospectively, I should have staged for another turn, just to kind of set myself up. But because the way that he'd positioned, once he had like all of no man's land, basically, he's eligible for 6-inch deep strikes basically everywhere in no man's land on my deployment zone, and he has multiple units of crushers. So I didn't want him to be able to immediately come with me and deal with me with crushers. And then I'm stuck dealing with crushers for a couple turns while he just takes over the middle of the board on terraform, because that would suck and that feels like an auto lose situation. So I wanted some kind of board presence to be able to steal back the middle, to have to make him spend a CP to be able to 6-inch, and nobody else can 6-inch. But unfortunately, I just got basically stat checked, and I ran into the issues with the greater demons. And to be honest, even if I did stage, with the way that his dice were rolling in that game, when I went to the demons anyway, it wouldn't have mattered. So it's something we're going to have to deal with. In the future, I don't know. I honestly think the list performed really, really well. I don't think there's much I would change about the list. It's very mission dependent, and we can kill greater demons. It just didn't come together when I needed it to earlier in the game. And then by the time I was actually like killing demons, like I had lost too much of my army just because of the huge first turn whiff. So I didn't want to commit anything else to the glow on the objective on the side that should have been at statistically on average 4 or 5 wounds. Instead, he finished the game with like 13 wounds. So there's not a whole ton I can do there. Should have played a little more passively, but then I just run the risk of Jake just shoving the game down my throat. Generally, when I played the Knights players, both of them had one big knight. So you basically just dealt with war dogs early. And this includes just cleaning up all of the little screening units they use. So whether it's cultists or sisters or stuff like that, like early game, and competing on primary early. And then when they come up to deal with the stuff that you put on primary. So the stuff like double charging with spawn and double charging with 8-bound, and just kind of sticking them in combat and reliably killing knights is important for the early game. And then you want to be able to hit the big knight with one of your like 10-man bricks, essentially. And then once you stick that in the middle of their army and it's stretching out the 6-inch pile and consolidate with the fight on death, it's extremely, extremely hard for somebody to deal with. And the entire time you're trying to keep your demon prince on foot within 12 inches of, he's -1 damage all the time. I don't know if I mentioned that. He's the helm on him. You want to keep most of your combat in the midboard within 12 inches of him, just so you get a discount on interrupts, you get a discount on the intervenes, and you get a discount on the -1 damage, which really, really helps shore up the Death Guard matchup, especially because basically any Death Shroud coming into like your locus of control and your side of the board, you can basically render useless. But we can get into that matchup a little bit later because I think that's an important one that a lot of World Leader players are struggling with right now. But in general, the list plays phenomenally. Forge Fiends are unbelievably good. I don't feel the need to take 3. I think 2 covered all the lanes that I needed them to. And what World Leaders are very, very, very good at is fighting other heavy infantry armies. So with the 8-bound auras being really good against infantry, having access to dev wounds on infantry, but even if you're playing a melee army, just having sustained and fight on death active the entire game means that when I played Anthony, like his bio list, I killed the most points in like one of his own turns. And that's just from like potential Forge Fiend Overwatch. That's from -1 damage to make him bounce, and then interrupts, and then fight on death being active throughout the entire army. Like there's honestly nothing he could have done in that matchup to make that any better. And especially leaning into kind of a meta where Blood Angels are stepping up a little bit. Death Guard are good. I think we pair pretty well into Death Guard actually. And it just feels, the game feels like very like melee based right now, especially with like Emperor's Children and stuff running around. So I think World Leaders are actually in a great spot. If we lose a few points, I think we're actually at the risk of being too strong. So I can definitely see 8-bound going down a little bit, Berserkers going down a little bit, but Spawn and Forge Fiends realistically should go up, and hopefully that equalizes and my list kind of stays at the same point, because in general I feel really great about it. Yeah, so basically I played 4 out of my 8 games in the stream tables, it's always a fantastic privilege, and the guys at GW run a really, really tight event. And it was just really cool being at a huge open and looking around and Basically, every game you're surrounded by like guys you know. Every time I was at the stream tables, there was at least one other guy, one other local I knew, like in there at one of the two stream tables with me. So it was honestly just a really really cool experience and being attached to the huge gaming convention. We had people walking through all the time, checking out our games, asking questions, and then when we were done our games, we could go and kind of like immerse ourselves in more of just like the general like gaming community, which is it's awesome. But yeah, no, it was a great event. A couple of Warhammer celebrities like John Lennon and Scary were there. So really cool to see a few of the local guys that have been following them for a while get to meet them. Um, and in general, yeah, I'm feeling great about Eaters. The biggest question mark that I've had since the event was how did I beat Death Guard? So essentially, I'm giving all my secrets. Basically, I just used my spawn to deal with his trash early, and I think that we discussed this after the game, and it was a little bit of a mistake for him to try and challenge me so early because I literally just used all my spawn, dealt with everything he had that was trash, and then I sat on the objectives and I said, okay, now you have to use things of value, and I have a sticky on death strat, so you have to come and deal with me. And I just spent the rest of the game kind of rotating around Mortarion, not really dealing with the Demon Prince until he realized that I wasn't really trying to deal with Mortarion and the Demon Prince. And then he moved the Demon Prince out because I drew line of sight. Like he reacted move when I got close to him. Moved the Demon Prince out because I drew line of sight some Death Shroud. So he with a Forge Fiend. So he wanted to be the Demon Prince to be the closest eligible. So I was like, okay. And then I moved my other Forge Fiend to also be able to see that same Demon Prince. And with two volleys of Forge Fiends shooting into this Demon Prince, as well as my own Demon Prince charging it, I was able to kill the Demon Prince. And ultimately, killing the Demon Prince gave me the character or monster kill that I needed to proc the 6-inch pile and consolidate, which allowed me to kill a Death Shroud blob. It allowed me to kill a Blight Hauler with the squad of Berserkers. And then the Berserkers consolidated onto his home objective. And then because the squad of 8 bound, I charged into the Hauler. Now they get to pile in before they attack. They piled in 6 inches into 2 heavy blow drones, and they picked them up. So basically, in one turn with one activation, while I still have my entire 10 blobs still in the Rhino, I still have scoring pieces all over parts of the objectives. With essentially, because I was able to kill the Prince and proc my 6-inch pile and consolidate, which if I wasn't able to, I would have needed to spend a CP to precision with Karn instead, and then kill the Death Shroud character to be able to pull off this play. So I did have some redundancy. But because I was able to kill the Prince there, not only did I not have the Prince to deal with, he didn't have the discount anymore for -1 damage, and he was at 1 CP, so he couldn't deal with it. I was able to kill the Death Shroud blob. I was able to kill the Hauler, and then I was able to consolidate and kill drones. So essentially, with the World Eaters movement, the 8 bound ended up, they have 10-inch move, and they ended up moving, I think, 26 inches total in that one turn to be able to go back and stand like right beside his home objective, and the Berserker stole his home. And it was a hold more mission, and that immediately there just ended the game. So the entire game, I'm using my trading pieces, using Forge Fiends, pre-measuring all of his shooting to stay out of like the lines of sight, but be able to present myself into lanes if he tries to come and deal with any of my other stuff, so my Forge Fiends can deal with whatever they want to on the board. Forge Fiend Overwatch is fantastic, because if you're within 18, when I Overwatch you, you're the only eligible, so they get full rerolls to hit. So always, like, if that spikes and losing something in your own turn sucks. So he was respecting that basically the whole game, which I think was definitely the correct call. But that really opened me up to kind of have a lot of flexibility all over the board. And then both the Death Shroud were deployed in his own deployment zone to try and protect everything that I had going on. So he had no board presence basically. And then once I got into his lines, then I spread out. Then if he wants to shoot me, then I can blood surge into one of his units. And I had fight on death active too. So when a second squad of Death Shroud came in, it was just like half the Death Shroud squad died to the fight on death, and it immediately just ended the game. Just having like that 10-man brick go in and just into a lot of his army, it's crippling, and that's why I really really like the aggressive play style of the two 10-mans. I know there's a lot of competitive lists that build just a 110 man, but I think that they're really important for the utility that I like. That doesn't have to be the kind of list you like, but I really like the damage in Warband. I really like the ability to advance and charge Berserkers, and I really like that really hyper aggressive. Like I love the damage, and I love being able to project on the board, and that's something that Khorne Demonkin is good at as well. And I don't have reps to be able to tell you what's better, but I really, really like World Leaders in the state that they're in right now, especially with the Warband. And I'll be bringing the same list this weekend to Goonhammer Open, and hopefully we can post a good result there. So yeah, it was supposed to be literally a practice weekend, warming up for next weekend and kind of learning my own rules. And then I finished third at a super major. So that's my experience with World Leader so far. After rotating back to the faction, it feels great to get the support that I have already from the World Leaders community. Lots of people sending me messages, and I'm more than happy to talk to anybody about World Leaders. And at some point, if I can get them on like a stream game or like a stream table, and I can like with my mic and I can talk through all of my movements, all of my plays and stuff like that, I'd love to run kind of like a how to play World Leaders, how to play a melee army, and just movement shenanigans and fundamentals just to help everybody step up their game. So yeah, that was my experience. Everybody else had a great weekend. We had a great showing from Calgary. If I rip off like the top 20, like even looking at the top 25 here, Jake Chalmers, there was me, there was, well, Kieran's from Edmonton, Anthony's from Calgary, Matt Sector's from Calgary, Cass is from Calgary. Well, all of you know Cass. Adam's also in the top 25. Ben Hauser's in the top 25. So everybody just had a phenomenal showing. And I'm really glad that we could, after getting a lot of Canadian players come to this event and a lot of really, really good international players coming, kind of showcase how strong our local meta is getting. And I'm really, really excited to keep moving and keep leveling up with the community. And then hopefully we can keep killing it. So thank you, Calgary. Thank you, Bloodbath fans. And please don't forget to hit the like button. Please don't forget to subscribe. We'll be trying to get a few more stream games. So if there's any armies you guys want to see on stream, we have a couple of faction experts, and we'd love to be able to show you how we play our factions and kind of our thought processes. They're not perfect, but they work for us, and we'd love to be able to just give you some new ideas. So yeah, make sure you smash that like button, subscribe, and I will see you next time when I am back with all the boys. Thanks.